Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Shortly, we're going to be joined by October Drift ahead of the release of their new album, Blame the Young, on September the 27th. But before then, the usual reminders from myself. If you would, please do follow Full Pelt on social media. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And again, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, wherever you're watching or listening. Well, welcome to Kiran from October Drift to the Full Pelt Music Podcast. Absolutely delighted to have you on this evening. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, man. How you doing?
Yeah, good. It's been a bit of a miserable day today, but the
Yeah.
light has come to me in the fact that I get to talk to you
Ah,
about
cool.
obviously your new album, Blame the
Mhm.
Young, is out on September the 27th. So first plug for the listeners,
Yeah.
definitely be ready, pre-order it if you can, because I've just been having a sneak peek, as I mentioned to Kieran before I hit record, and it is such a great album. I shouldn't be surprised in saying that because it's October Drift and every album's been great. But yeah, really great album. So listeners definitely want to jump on board straight away. And first question for you, Kieran, is obviously Blame the Young is your third album now. Your second album very much was a pandemic album, both in terms
hmm
of how you recorded it and obviously some of the themes that were touched on
Yeah.
within that album. Thankfully, we are well past all of that now.
Yeah.
So, how was the process for you this time? And did it feel that much sweeter having experienced what you did, obviously, with the last record?
Yeah, I think it did. Like we recorded this album in an Airbnb. It was on the Somerset levels. It was like a barn conversion, and we stayed there for a week, and that's where we stayed there and brought our own recording gear and stuff, and that's um how we tracked the album. And just having that, being able to go somewhere else and having it felt like a different experience. Like the I mean, I'm really proud of the second album, but I think you're right. It has that feeling, lots of like themes of isolation, and the lockdown was quite a running theme throughout the album. And this one really felt like a lighter experience to be recording it, and it was really good fun. Actually, we like had a great time recording it, and I think you can hear that in the album. If it feels like a bit of a healing, a bit of a journey, especially towards the end of the album as well. Like I think it's takes we wanted it to take you on a bit of a journey as well, and it feels like we've all had things changing in our lives over the last since the last album, and this really sort of feels like it encapsulates some of that.
Yeah, I could definitely feel that. And as you say, the album does take us as a listener on a journey. And first half uh, is great. It's got some like genuine like October Drift sort of bangers to get down with the kids on the first half.
Classic
Second
Drift.
album, classic Drift. Second half, obviously, really does sort of take us on a bit of a deeper sort of dive with the band and
hmm
obviously just sort of continue the journey from I guess the last album and the feelings that you say and I mean whilst I'm talking I will just say that the themes of that album at the time just really helped for a lot of people, like listeners such as myself, because we're all going through this really tough time, dealing with situations, emotions perhaps that we haven't felt before. And, albums such as that one and some other great ones that were recorded at that time will always have a place in our hearts because it helped us get through that time. And I
Yeah, I
think
do
that's
think
important to recognize.
I think it's quite cool that there's quite unusual, and there's such a small timestamp in terms of like recorded music from that period, that it's kind of interesting and cool that that'll last forever, and that was sort of a little snippet of that time anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Such a unique time, and like I say, small snippet of time, but one that all of us that lived through it will never forget.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the journey now, obviously, with Blame the Young and coming through both, the changes in your lives, as you've said, and the changes in society as well that have come during this period. Such a great record. Again, to get the plugs in there for the listeners. Obviously, I've made my feelings on it known. Um, as we speak, we're 4 days away from the
Yeah,
release.
Friday, yeah.
And I
At
love to
last.
get to speak to people that are obviously, you've put your heart and soul into this record and you've had to
Yeah.
sit with it now probably for maybe even a year at the way the industry works.
Yeah, no, longer. Yeah.
Longer.
Yeah.
So I mean, 4 days away now. What are you feeling? What are your feelings ahead of release?
Oh, it does feel like a long time coming, like it's always strange because like we recorded it not well, like a year and a half ago. So it sometimes feels strange that it's so you almost have a grow a distance from it, which is actually quite good after because it's so intense recording it and writing an album, and you sort of live with those songs that how I haven't I just basically after we've sort of finished it, I didn't listen to it or think about it too much in the direct aftermath of that because it's so intense getting everything together and different people's ideas, and you hear it all over and over and over again. So actually having a bit of space to come back to it now, you can kind of appreciate parts of what you've done. So but I mean, yeah, it feels fantastic to be finally actually having it out on Friday, and a long time coming, and I can't wait for everyone to hear it. Yeah, really excited. So we've got these in stores. One on Friday, starting on Friday, and Banquet on Friday in Kingston. So that's the first time ever we'll play some of these songs to a live audience, kind of thing. And so we've got a week of in stores, kind of acousticy, stripped back, and then we've got the tour in later in October. So where we're doing it full whack, and we've been rehearsing the new songs as well. So it's been really cool to actually sort of bring them to life in a live. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I can only imagine, as you say, having sat with them for so long. You talk about journeys. Obviously, the journey you've had with your own songs during that time, and now getting to, yeah, get the reaction of people that are listening to it on record. But
Mm-hmm.
probably even more, refreshing has been able to get that real time feel of playing
Yeah.
the songs live. And I mean, with the in stores in particular, first of all, you know, October Drift. We talked last time about your ability to adapt your own songs, and obviously the series you did on YouTube that I absolutely loved, obviously, was songs in strange places, and
Uh-huh.
and obviously in stores for me are an example of that because you get to see bands playing songs quite often in a different way because of the environment that they're in within that store, and I can only imagine that you as a band would see that as an opportunity rather than a challenge, to actually be able to do something a little different with these songs. So are you
Yeah,
excited
definitely.
to do that?
Yeah, very. Yeah, we've got we haven't worked out quite how we're going to do them yet, but we're going to go through that on Thursday, I think, and then do the first one on Friday. But we've yeah, it will be cool. We'll strip back and play the song. Yeah, show the songs in a different light, and also something different for it's a more intimate sort of approach, and for the gig as well. I mean, I think a lot of people who will be coming to these in stores will also be coming to the tour to see it full whack. But this is a kind of um, just a more relaxed environment, and we'll be sort of doing a bit of talking and about the songs and the album, and then playing the songs in a sort of stripped back, relaxed way. Yeah, which
Yeah.
it suits the environment, like you said, like in the record shops and stuff like that. Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. It'll be fun.
Yeah, definitely. And second plug for me is definitely listeners. If you can jump onto one of those shows, there'll be a link in the bio that will take you to everything that we talk about. All the links from the band. So definitely go and click through, see if you can find one of these shows to go and
Yeah,
experience that.
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll touch on the tour a little bit later. But before then, just run through, the album, some of the tracks on the album that I want to explore a little. And the first one is the first song on the album. It's the title of the album. It was the first single from the album. It's called Blame the Young, as we touched on. And, given the emphasis on the track, first release is always important off any album. And obviously, first track on the album, title of the album. Why is my question? What about that song stood out to make it that important song for the album?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question. We had that song for like the lyrics, the verses at least we'd had for I think it might be the oldest one on the record. They've been kicking around for since maybe the first album even. And they'd just been sat on a hard drive somewhere, and we had kind of not touched it and almost forgotten. Well, I had forgotten about it, and Chris, I think it was him who wanted to reapproach that, and we had it originally called Atmosphere Rip, and it was like that guitar part, but it was a lot slower, and it had those verses, but we never made it it was never like cohesive, and it was just a few verses with no sort of nothing attaching it. Anyway, so when we did piece it all together, it was kind of finding that thing, that the blame, the different things that sort of made it make sense within itself. And then when we showed it to people and stuff, just the reaction we got from it was just super positive. And we played it in sound checks when we were on tour, just to sort of learn it in live. And every time we'd play it, whoever was in the room, like we could sound check away. And then when we came to play that one, people's ears would prick up, and we were like, I think it could be onto something with this one. And something about it just felt really like striking and defiant in the Blame the Young, and sort of summed up something about the essence of that energy, and of something of the essence of the time as well. So that's what we went with.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's a lot of relevance within the themes of the song, but musically as well, it is, as you termed a little while ago, which I love, classic drift. It has got that sense to it. So it works as a obviously great introduction to the album, and then obviously listeners will get sucked into everything else that comes, as I say, in the journey they go on. And one of those tracks I want to ask you about is Demons, which has been another of the pre-release singles. So obviously listeners hopefully have had a chance to hear it already, and it's just one that for me, I can really see the sort of the deeper meanings that come out in that song, and it's a song that I think a lot of listeners will be able to relate to their own stories, which is what I think is always so important about music, because obviously you'll write it from your perspective, but for a listener, when you can actually bring a song into yourself and relate it to your experiences or your journey that you're on, or whatever you're going through at that time, it just makes a song so much more vital. And that's one of those sort of tracks for me. So obviously with Demons, and obviously where you wrote the song from, what can you tell us about that song? How did it come together for you?
I mean, it really is about being there for someone else, through it sounds a bit cliche, doesn't it, but through the sort of the hard times and things like that. So it was about being it's a song about togetherness, really, ultimately, and being there for someone, a bit sort of finding solace in someone else, and being there for someone to lean on, and sort of no matter what, sometimes even through difficult things, that's ultimately what it's about.
Yeah, which I love for two reasons. Because first of all, everyone is going to go through tough times, hard times, as you say, and they're going to, need other people around them to get through those tough times. So it makes the song relatable. But given that we were talking obviously about the last album was written, and the themes around it, a lot of about being in the pandemic, loneliness, being apart from people. So it's the flip side of that with this song, and the importance of actually being together. And I think that just links the two records quite nicely, and just a lovely touch, I think.
100%. This album is a lot of those themes of togetherness, and sort of you're not alone, and like that's definitely a running theme. And also, so it's also got that within to yourself as well, like a love for yourself kind of thing, and accepting and acknowledging those around you and yourself, and being more comfortable with that, I think is kind of a lot of that as well.
Yeah, there absolutely is, which is also a nice segue into the next sort of track I want to put a spotlight on, or more so the video. So regular listeners to this podcast by now will know that I obsess about music videos. I just love the sort of art that is music videos. It's a dying art. A lot of bands that I talk to, actually, I'm always a bit disappointed if I can't find a video to talk about, because I'm like, oh man, I really want to talk about a video. Now, Tyrannosaurus Rex is the video. You've probably guessed that I was going to pick on for this, because it is a unique, great video. I just love something a little bit different with music videos. Music videos help me to form a better bond, stronger connection with artists. And this one I just fell in love with straight away, because it is so unique. But for you, Kiran, for anyone that hasn't watched the video, obviously it features Kiran in a dinosaur outfit, costume, walking around town, looking quite lonely, unfortunately. And first of all, how did you come up, or who come up with the concept? Yeah, who gets credit for that? How did you put it into practice? And third part of the question, if I want to do a third part question for you, is just how many strange looks did you get going around like
A few, yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, we make all our own music videos, and like it's just one of the things as being a band in like these times is that you don't just you have to make music videos. We record ourselves and all these other sides of the band that you don't necessarily consider. Like Alex did all the artwork and stuff for the whole thing, and so recording it and making the music videos and stuff like that, all this additional stuff on top of just writing songs and playing gigs, which is a double-sided coin, but it's this we've had a lot of fun doing some of these things, and I think a few of us had an idea of the dinosaur suit, and I think Hannah, my girlfriend, suggested the dinosaur suit as well, and I was picturing someone in a dinosaur suit not being me, and I was picturing them going to work and struggling to get, I don't know, like being a T-Rex or whatever, but struggling to get by their day-to-day life in the office and things like that. But the guys had thought a really similar thing, but they thought it should be me. So I'm not sure how they convinced me to put on the dinosaur suit. But we found one online, and then we wanted it to deliberately look a bit ropey. Do you know what I mean? And then we went to Chard, which is like a little Somerset town, and just me. So Dan was filming it all. Chris was next to him, sort of going, "Oh yeah, just do a bit here, do a bit here." I mean, we've done a handful. We've made a few music videos now, so we are a little bit more aware of what works and what looks good. But so we just went and spent a few hours walking around Chard and filmed it. It got some strange looks, a few which made it into the actual music video. It was roasting hot as well, so dinosaur suit, I was just sweating in that dinosaur suit, and I wasn't particularly keen on being in the dinosaur suit and singing the song over and over and over in the middle of Chard, which I think comes across as my depressed dinosaur acting career. But actually, I was so on the fence with the video, if I'm totally honest. And then everyone we showed it to has loved it, so I was like, I think it's good. I think it's just because it's me. But I was also thinking it was better than the Waltzer video where it was the cold water like constantly over my head. I was like, at least the dinosaur suit's better than the freezing cold water.
Yeah, I guess it's the occupational hazard of being the front man as well, where you end up being the one that has to endure these videos.
We've got to do another video on. We're going to try and do it on Wednesday morning, I think. So yeah, we'll see how that one goes. We've got I think we've got a little bit better, but we definitely used to have a hit, like a 50-50 hit rate of everything. Every video we shot was like either we had to go out and do it again, or yeah. So fingers crossed we'll get it on Wednesday.
Yeah, no, fingers crossed for you. And I love as well that you've obviously been able to have a competition to obviously someone's won the awesome dinosaur costume. Although haven't obviously heard that how hot it was and obviously sweaty it was.
Oh yeah,
have you watched it
sold that? I'm not sure how to watch it. Oh, you probably could watch it.
I don't know if that adds more value.
I was in my clothes. I was in my clothes underneath it, so I guess.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd say like I don't know, an obsessive fan might actually want the added sweat. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Might increase the value.
Yeah, the film value.
There's a small percentage of people.
Oh, fantastic! And I mean, it's funny because a couple of episodes back on the podcast, we had a band called The Exact Opposite on, and they've just done a music video where the singer of the band had to walk through Oxford with a box on his head. And I actually sort of thought and said to them at the time as well, the more of these sorts of things that happen, because obviously TikTokers and YouTubers are doing all sorts of things out there. I mean, maybe not in Chard, in Devon or Gloucester or somewhere. You said
I think it's Somerset. Yeah,
Somerset. Yeah, they're probably not used to that. Bigger cities at this point. I wonder if there's actually just a bit of another guy with a box on his head, or another guy dressed as a dinosaur. Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah. Interesting theory. But yeah, obviously, listeners, check out the video if you haven't. Hopefully that's whetted your appetite for it. It's a great video. And
we did feel like it had the right balance of like comedy and sort of bit
Yeah.
tongue in cheek and lighthearted, but and the song is like that as well. It's kind of like making light of some fairly heavy themes, but sort of put in a sort of like slightly tongue in cheek way. Yeah, just that
Yeah.
lyric really. I brought the lyric to the band, and they were so on the fence of it. Like we sort of slept on it. They didn't know if it was the worst lyric I'd brought to the table or the best, and then they sort of decided they really liked it, and I really liked it. But it does have a sort of tragic comedy to it a little bit.
Yeah, which I think we all need occasionally, and the video does portray that really, really well. And I mean, just to finish off on my love of music videos as well, I always say, like, a lot of bands don't bother these days, but I mean, that wouldn't have cost the earth for you to produce, and it just works really well on many levels. And that's just a good example for bands out there, in my opinion, of what you can achieve with just a little bit of craft and ingenuity and like can-do attitude. It works really well.
We've got a camera, but that was that video just cost the fuel to get to Chard and the 20 quid or whatever the dinosaur suit was.
£20 well spent, definitely. Obviously you've been to Chard, but as we said, you're going on tour, so I don't think you're playing in Chard, but you are playing a hell of a lot of shows, as October Drift always do. Never ones to shy away from the road. And obviously, again, link in the bio. Listeners, definitely, if you can, I strongly recommend you go and catch October Drift live. I've managed to do it on a number of occasions now, and it's always just such a engaging, visceral experience, unlike pretty much any other band out there. So really worth going to check out October Drift. And one of the opportunities I want to just pinpoint and ask you your feelings on is you're playing Scala, which is your biggest headline show. So obviously in London, for people that may not be aware of Scala, but a great music venue. Obviously, as you've progressed, album number 3 now, as a band, you've survived the pandemic, which a lot of bands didn't. You're still putting some great music out there and playing a lot of shows. And obviously, is it a career milestone that you acknowledge? And is it obviously something that means a lot to you to get to play a venue such as that?
Yeah, like very, very much so. That we had a chat with the manager years ago, and he was sort of talking about bands that had played Scala, and that was always like for him that was like the almost the way we were talking seemed like the pinnacle of. I mean, obviously it's all relative, isn't it? Like it's all relative, but it does feel like a definite milestone for us. It's been a slow build to get to where we are now, and it's kind of a real loyal sort of people who are into our band. There's a lot of people who are really into our band and will come to a bunch of different shows on the tour. And it's really cool. We've built a sort of quite a strong sort of community of people who will, people who come to the gigs. And Scala, I think, feels like, definitely like a milestone to everything, to where we are now. And like you said, like with the third record, it's been a while since we've done London as well. Was it the last album tour that we did London on? The last one was Colours in Hoxton, which was a brilliant gig as well. And London especially was like for a while it was sort of a bit behind some of the other cities as well. And so it's nice for us to now be able to do a show, like have our biggest show, headline show ever, and it be in London. And we felt like it was a bit of a slight risk to do Scala. It felt like a big jump up from what we had done previously. But judging by how the tickets have sold, it's going to be really, really, really great. So yeah, we're really pleased. We've also jumped up a few of Manchester's sort of jumped up the venue size as well from what we've done before as well. So it feels like a nice little step up, and the tickets across the board have been selling really well. So it's been a long time to get to where we are, for years and years, in the early days playing empty rooms up and down the UK. So it does feel like really, really special that it's now, lots of people are turning up to the shows and tickets are going well and stuff like that. Definitely don't take that for granted.
No, I'm delighted to hear it. It's great, as someone that has that obviously, enjoys the band, has supported the band, to see that you're growing like this. But it's also great as well because there's some great independent music venues that you're going out and playing, and obviously they are struggling at the moment. So to hear ticket sales are going okay, it is just really positive because, again, listeners, I will always bang on about getting out and supporting grassroots music venues, independent artists. So please, obviously, again, listeners, I always love to do the plug-in on this podcast to save the band from doing it themselves. Please, if you can, go to a show. Obviously, link is in the bio. See where the band are playing. If you can get to one, really do. I can't encourage it enough. And obviously, as well, this is where I always give out the social handles because that's the best place for listeners to stay up to date on what a band is doing, where they're playing. October Drift make my life really easy because it is literally at October Drift, unless you're a TikToker and it's October Drift Music on there. And it should flash up on the screen. Listeners, again, go follow the band. It's just obviously one of the best ways to stay up to date. And I say one of the best ways on this edition of the podcast because occasionally I get to spotlight something called Patreon, which I think is a fantastic tool. I talked about music videos earlier as a way of forming a stronger connection with a band. As a teen, before school, after school, I'd be watching Krang and MTV and Scars, and obviously you'd see bands on there that you obviously would go, oh, I love their look, so you might do your hair like one of the bands, you might dress like one of the bands. It's just a stronger way to connect. But of course, with social media and the advent of technology like this, you can actually connect a lot more with bands these days, and Patreon's a great way of doing it. And I clicked on yours, Kiran, obviously for the band before we came on. And what I love about what you've done is you've got the various tiers as Patreon does, but you get the same perks with every tier. So it's basically, there's no preventing, through costs, what your fans will get from you, which I think is a great touch. It really, really is. So obviously, listeners, again, there'll be a link in the bio. And with Patreon, you can get access to, like live streams and some other sort of bits and bobs that you won't get if you don't obviously subscribe to the band. So, encourage listeners to do that. Do you obviously feel that you get a lot out of Patreon? I mean, obviously not just talking about the financial side, although that is a lifeline for bands these days.
Yeah.
But do you feel you get to have that connection, from the other side with your fans that perhaps you can't get elsewhere?
Yeah, I mean, we do like we like you said, we do a monthly live stream where we sort of chat and play through new songs or covers or releases and stuff like that. But we've also got the vault, we call it, where we've put like demos or covers or just loads of different recordings. So we normally put a song or two up there a month into the vault as well. Loads of like unheard stuff. So I think it's cool. It's a cool thing. So it's a nice outlet for us to put stuff out that wouldn't necessarily be released otherwise. And I think it's, some people really enjoy listening to that stuff and back, old demos or different versions of songs and stuff like that. And like you said, it's not for like that sort of stuff would only be interesting if you were really into the band, but it's really nice that people do want to hear some of that stuff and log into the live stream every month. And so it's been actually brilliant for us. And we like you said, we didn't want to do nothing. We wanted it to be something of worth to people who do subscribe, but we didn't want to make it tiered and exclusive to people who could afford it over people who can't. And I also feel like there's no pressure to I don't, what we're doing on there, we're still doing. In fact, we might open up the live streams to a wider audience, maybe every other one or something to on YouTube anyway, because there is some difficult. I mean, I think most people who are subscribe on the Patreon as well are kind of happy to support the band and want to help us, how they can. And like you said, being a band these days is actually having some of that financial gain as well is really important and helpful and helps us continue to do what we do as well. So we're really thankful for it, and it's been I think it's been a great thing from both sides, from both parties, so yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's what I love about Patreon over, other sort of similar kind of things. It always seems to work well for, the fan and the band. It's a mutual sort of community that gets formed on there, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. So yeah, definitely, listeners, if you weren't aware of it, I'd like to think a lot of the fans that will listen to this probably are aware of it. But
Yeah.
if you're not, do get on there and to see if it's something that you'd like to do. Um, it's been obviously amazing talking with you, Kieran. Like, there's so much that the fans need to delve into that we've discussed, and I've plugged throughout, and the links are all there in the bio. The final section, though, for the podcast is something a bit more generic. It's the same question that I ask every single band, and I didn't get to ask you last time you were
Okay.
on the podcast because I brought it in subsequently, because a lot of those early podcasts that I did, and we've touched on a few during this podcast, we started talking about issues within the music industry. So I thought, rather than dwelling on them too much during the main conversation, because I want to get plugging the band, really, that's what it's about for me. I thought I'd pigeonhole it all at the end. So I come up with this magical section called the Magic Wand.
Okay.
And yeah, we're going to step into fantasy land, and I'm going to give you a magic wand, Kieran. And with that magic wand, you can change one thing about the music industry, but one thing only, which is where it gets a little bit tough for guests to pick.
Oh God.
Yeah, properly put you on the spot at this point, which is always fun for me. Not so much for the guests, but with your magic wand today, Kieran, what would you change about the music industry?
Um, with my magic one, what I change? I think there's just it's a really difficult one because it is a financial thing with, like you said, with the small venues and the grassroots music venues and grassroots music bands and artists. Just sort of surviving is actually just a tricky thing. I think the recent things of like the bigger venues paying a percentage towards grassroots music could make a massive difference, in the same way that sports do
Yeah,
that as well. And I think that maybe that
yeah,
would be a massive, huge, I think, for grassroots music venues, and also that giving a space for emerging music and bands and scenes. Yeah.
yeah. No, it's a great one, and one that I endorse so much. I mean, the two that jump to my mind, Enter Shikari, have been really great with it, and obviously relevant for this week because tickets are about to go on sale. Coldplay, 10%
Yeah.
of their stadium tour
Yeah, unreal.
profits is going to go to MVT Music Venue Trust, which is just like so much credit to Coldplay for doing that.
Yeah.
That's massive, really, really is. So yeah, a great option there with the Magic Wand, Kieran. So well done. You definitely
Yeah.
passed that one for me. And obviously, yeah, just fantastic being able to talk about all of this great stuff going on with October Drift. Listeners, my final plug is always just, click the links that are in the bio, check out the album. If you can come to a show, if nothing else, give the band a follow on social media and just stay up to date with where they're going, because it's a great journey to be on. That's my final message. But as always, I like to give the final message over to the guests. So Kieran, what would be your final message for the listeners today?
Well, just that I hope you check out the album and enjoy the album, and really hope that see some of you on tour. In the UK tour. I didn't mention the European tour as well, which feels like another big milestone because it's our first headline European tour. So maybe see some of you on the Europe dates as well. That would be a big adventure. And if not, we'll see you very soon. And thanks so much for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, no, absolute pleasure, Kieran. Thank you so much for coming on again.
No worries, man.
Well, thank you everyone for listening. I really do hope you enjoyed that chat there with October Drift. Do make sure you check out their new album, Blame the Young, which is out on September the 27th. And of course, follow the band across social media to stay up to date with everything coming from them. You can also stay up to date with Full Pelt. We're on Facebook at Full Pelt and on Twitter and Instagram at Full Pelt Music. And finally, if you would, please do hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, whatever you're watching or listening, because we'll be back very soon with another episode of the Full Pelt Music Podcast.